Morning, Carlos. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to start. The 89th Plenary Meeting of the General Assembly is called to order. The Assembly will continue its consideration of Agenda Item 122 entitled Question of Equitable Representation on an Increase in the Membership of the Security Council and other matters related to the Security Council, to hear explanations of vote after the vote on the oral decision. Before giving the floor for explanations of vote after the vote, may I remind delegations that explanations of vote are limited to 10 minutes and should be made by delegations from their seats. I give the floor to the distinguished representative for Pakistan.
Mr. President, I would like to align myself with the statement to be delivered later by the distinguished representative of Italy on behalf of the United for Consensus group. Pakistan welcomes the adoption of the oral decision yesterday to roll over the negotiations on Security Council reform within the IGN process. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the President of the General Assembly for guiding the IGN process and the adoption of the oral decision. We also commend the work of the IGN chair, Ambassador Tariq Al-Banai, for his able and active stewardship of the IGN process. We also acknowledge the contribution of former co-chair, Ambassador Alexander Marshak. We believe that during the course of the 79th session, the informal exchanges and presentation of reform models have certainly revitalized the Security Council reform process. We have engaged in constructive and frank discussions on both areas of convergence and divergence. It is only by identifying new convergences and building on them that we can advance the existing momentum of the reform process. Mr. President, the IGN process is the only game in town. As the legitimate and most appropriate, it should seek solutions that garner the widest political acceptance by the member states. In this regard, we firmly believe that Resolution 5330 and Decision 62557 constitute the foundational pillars of this process. It is imperative that our deliberations remain firmly anchored in these guiding documents. As all 5 clusters are strongly interlinked, negotiation should be based on the principle that nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. My delegation would like to underline that a consolidated model for Security Council reform can only be developed once there is full convergence on the 5 interlinked clusters. Text-based negotiations cannot commence, nor artificial deadlines set, until there is full convergence on the 5 clusters. Therefore, the focus of the IGN should primarily be on reducing the existing divergences on the 5 clusters. The realization of this objective calls for patient and constructive dialogue underpinned by mutual flexibility and a genuine willingness to accommodate one another's perspectives. We trust that at the IGN sessions next year, member states will be able to build further on the important work done this year. Pakistan, like other UFC members, looks forward to continuing its constructive participation. In conclusion, Mr. President, let me reiterate that IGN is the only agreed and accepted modality to pursue Security Council reform. Introducing new modalities on any precipitate initiatives at this stage would risk disrupting and damaging the process. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative for Pakistan. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative from Bahrain, who will speak on behalf of the Arab group.
Mr. President, I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the Arab group. At the outset, I would like to thank you for convening this session and for your continued support of the IGN process. in pursuit of the desired reform of the Security Council. I also extend my thanks to the chair of the IGN, His Excellency Ambassador Tariq Al-Barnai, permanent representative of the State of Kuwait to the UN, for his fruitful work in leading the negotiations and for his innovative approach in pushing them forward. I would also like to thank His Excellency Ambassador Marchik, former permanent representative of Austria, for the efforts he made as co-chair of the negotiations. Mr. President, this session of the IGN follows the adoption of the Pact for the Future. The Pact for the Future reaffirmed the member states' commitment to reforming the Security Council and injected renewed momentum into the negotiation process. The 6 meetings held during the current session, which addressed the 5 reform topics and included structured dialogues on proposed reform models, in addition to the informal meetings, have enriched the discussions on this important issue. In this context, the Arab Group welcomes the adoption of the oral decision by consensus, which ensures a smooth transition to the next session and allows the member states to continue working collectively in order to reach a common understanding that provides the necessary foundation for reaching a consensual solution leading to a genuine and comprehensive reform of the Security Council. Mr. President, the Arab Group maintains that the IGN is the sole platform for reaching an agreement on the expansion and reform of the Security Council pursuant to the GA Resolution 62/557. This resolution calls for a solution that garners the broadest possible political acceptance among member states and upholds the principle of member states' ownership of the negotiations. The Arab Group appreciates the efforts made to develop the revised element paper by the co-chairs regarding convergences and divergences. While the paper highlights convergence on many elements of the Security Council reform, it also underscores that further work is needed to bridge the gap and to narrow differences on several other elements. Allow me to reiterate the Arab Group's position. We ask for a full-fledged permanent Arab representation in the category of permanent seats in the event of any future expansion of the Council. Additionally, equitable representation requires proportionate Arab representation in the category of non-permanent seats in an expanded Security Council. In conclusion, the Arab Group looks forward to continuing discussions during the next session of the IGN. We reaffirm our commitment to actively and constructively participate with the aim of achieving genuine and comprehensive reform of the Security Council in a spirit of transparency and constructive engagement. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Bahrain. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Italy, who will speak on behalf of the Uniting for Consensus group.
Mr. President, on behalf of the Uniting for Consensus group, I would like to begin by expressing our sincere thanks for your leadership throughout the Security Council reform process during the 79th session. We also welcome the overview of the process that you presented in your opening remarks. Furthermore, we wish to express our continued gratitude to the chair of the Intergovernmental Negotiations, Ambassador Al-Banai, for his dedicated leadership throughout this year's cycle. His guidance, together with that of Ambassador Marshik, who served as a co-chair earlier in this session, has enabled member states to engage in productive and focused discussions on the 5 clusters and their interconnections as outlined in the General Assembly Decision 62/557. This session marked a positive forward movement in the process, including an effective structured dialogues on concrete proposals for Security Council reform. Ambassador Al-Banai's update of the element paper on convergences and divergences provides a useful reflection of the discussions held during this IGN session, bearing in mind, of course, that said document was transmitted to you under his own prerogative. As a group advocating for a comprehensive reform, United for Consensus has consistently participated in this process with a proactive, flexible, and constructive mindset, fostering open and inclusive dialogue with all delegations and negotiating groups. The negotiation process on Security Council reform remains ongoing, and we look forward to its continuation during the upcoming 80th session of the General Assembly. Beyond our strong views on the substance of reform, we believe the shared objective of all member states should be to build consensus for a credible, comprehensive, and effective Security Council reform within the IGN framework, in accordance with the General Assembly Decision 62/557 and Resolution 53/30. On substance, our common goal should be to work towards a more accountable, representative, inclusive, transparent, efficient, effective, and democratic UN Security Council that is able to deliver on its mandate to maintain international peace and security, something that is critically needed in today's complex global environment. Mr. President, in this spirit, United for Consensus Group supports your oral draft decision, which will facilitate a smooth transition of these crucial negotiations into the 80th session of the General Assembly. Reaffirming that Security Council reform is a process driven by member states, we look forward to continued fruitful and productive discussions in the IGN as the only agreed and accepted platform where divergences on the issues within the 5 classes of reform can be further reduced, the structured dialogue on proposed models of reform advanced, and ultimately, in the spirit of a genuine flexibility by all sides, where consensus can be reached on a reformed council that benefits all member states and accurately reflects the reality of the 21st century. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Italy. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Cuba.
Mr. President, my delegation wishes to make a statement in connection with the draft oral decision presented under Agenda Item 122. At the outset, we wish to thank the permanent representative of Kuwait and the previous permanent representative of Austria for their efforts and their work to steer the intergovernmental negotiations on Security Council reform. During the 79th session, we continued to discuss this important process across its various clusters. At the same time, we had the opportunity to exchange our points of view regarding the various models presented by the delegations where Security Council reform was concerned. It is regrettable that, owing to the obstructionist position adopted by one delegation, the text that we will adopt today does not enshrine the central role of the General Assembly as regards the question of equitable representation on an increase in the number of Security Council members and in terms of other matters related to this organ. This omission does not only ignore the crucial role played by the General Assembly as the primary decision-making and representative body of the United Nations, it also stands as a significant act of undoing progress on agreed language that was agreed upon following intense negotiations on an issue as sensitive as this one in the UN agenda. We're also concerned at the scorn shown by that same delegation towards commitments, high-level commitments reached previously, commitments designed to continue lending momentum to our efforts on Security Council reform within the IGN process. That reform is a matter of priority and particular interest for our delegation. We are not surprised by that stance. It is a sequence and is part of a sequence of erratic decisions and actions which directly undermine the very essence of multilateralism and the values and principles enshrined in the United Nations Charter. The attitude of that delegation is fully in step with its withdrawal from international organizations and the fact it has failed over a long period to pay its contributions to the regular budget, and they continue therefore to be the primary player responsible for the organization's financial situation. That's just a few examples of their action. We reiterate our will to continue making the most of the IGN, to exchange points of view with member states, and to tackle the necessary reform of this organ through the detailed discussion of the 5 clusters in line with 62 557. We hope that we will move towards a solution that can enjoy the greatest possible political acceptance among member states. Against the backdrop of the UN's 80th anniversary, let us step up our efforts to defend multilateralism and the UN's credibility. With that in mind, we must move towards a comprehensive reform of the Security Council so that it can become a truly transparent, democratic and representative body. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Cuba. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of India.
Mr. President, I take the floor to explain the position of India on the oral decision regarding rollover of the intergovernmental negotiations on Security Council reform to the 80th session of the General Assembly. At the outset, India aligns itself with the statement delivered by St. Vincent and Grenadines yesterday on behalf of L69 and the one to be delivered by Japan on behalf of G4. In addition, I would like to make the following points in my national capacity. First, our support to the oral decision reflects our positive spirit of engagement, abiding commitment to achieving concrete progress with regard to Security Council reforms, and respect for your presidency. Second, our support is not to be construed as an unconditional endorsement of the references to specific action points in the Pact for the Future. Our reservation regarding omission of an explicit reference to expansion of the permanent category has been consistent. We have been categorical in our reservations on the inclusion of a faith-based organization as a cross-regional group. Third, while we appreciate the efforts of the IGN chair in steering the discussions under the purview of IGN, India is constrained to highlight that the revised elements paper falls short of accurately capturing the overall state of play and prevailing sentiment of member states on several aspects. I would like to specify the following elements in this context. 1. Around 90% of the member states who gave written submissions during the preparation of the framework document in 2015 were in favor of expanding the permanent category. This sentiment has not been captured in any manner. 2. The continuing and historical injustice to Africa is primarily in their lack of representation in the permanent category. This has not been acknowledged. 3. Representation of a faith-based organization in a reformed council, particularly by clubbing it with other cross-regional groups like SIDS, has been shown as a convergence. However, this is far from the truth, and the corresponding footnote also attests to this. 4. While we acknowledge the importance of IGN, projecting this as the sole and exclusive forum for taking discussions on IGN reforms forward needs rectification. The IGN process itself risks losing legitimacy and credibility if it continues without text-based negotiations, specific timelines, and milestones. In conclusion, I would like to underline that the way forward is clear. Member states need to come together with a joint sense of purpose towards achieving real reforms of the Security Council in an expeditious manner. India reiterates its strong determination to realize council reforms in order to make it reflective of the current geopolitical realities and equip it appropriately to address questions related to efficacy, legitimacy, and credibility. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the distinguished representative of India. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Nigeria.
Mr. President, Nigeria would like to first endorse the statement delivered by the distinguished representative of St. Vincent and Grenadines for the group of L69. We also align ourselves with the statement delivered by Sierra Leone on behalf of the Africa Group and provide these comments regarding the elements paper submitted by the chair of the IGN along with the draft decision. First, Nigeria expresses its appreciation to the chair of the IGN for his efforts in producing the elements paper. We believe that while the revised elements paper is the chair's recollection of views expressed by member states and groups, The conclusions on each point should reflect the preponderance of views expressed during the IGN meetings. This approach should guide the determination of issues that are categorized as convergence and those regarded as having divergent views. In this context, we underscore that a fair reflection of the significant support for a reform of the Security Council in the permanent and non-permanent membership categories by overwhelming majority of member states and groups is a designation as convergence would have been appropriate. Surprisingly, this was not the approach followed in the elements paper, including on the overwhelming support for addressing the historical injustice meted against Africa. Nigeria is not opposed to the call for submissions of models by states and groups who have not done so, but it's important to reiterate the urgency in advancing the IGN process towards a text-based negotiation. We believe this is the only realistic path towards the actualization of the mandate of this august body. At this stage, the IGN should be considering producing, as a matter of necessity, a consolidated model to facilitate a text-based negotiation without further delay. We must not return to the GA in 2026 with yet another uninspiring progress report of our stewardship. We must demonstrate capacity and political will to substantially advance the work of the IGN during the 80th session. Nigeria will continue to engage productively with member states and groups to drive this important process. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Nigeria. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Japan, who will speak on behalf of the group of 4.
Mr. President, I deliver this statement on behalf of the G4, Brazil, Germany, India, and my own country, Japan. In light of the continued and serious challenges to international peace and security, and the critical role of the Security Council in addressing them, reform urgently needed and must be advanced without delay, as was also underscored in the Pact of the Future. In this regard, the G4 welcomes this year's discussions under the IGN on the revised Liechtenstein model and the CARICOM model. The G4 extends its appreciation to the IGN chair and his entire team for their dedication, coordination, and facilitation to advance the IGN process. We also thank the IGN chair for the revised co-chair's elements paper. The G4 recalls that the document is solely the responsibility and authorship of the chair and does not consist of language agreed upon at the intergovernmental level. In this context, the G4 expresses 2 specific and serious concerns among the others. The first is that the document fails to mention the majority of support for an expansion of both the permanent and non-permanent categories. The second is that it characterizes the IGN as the exclusive platform to lead discussions on the Security Council reform. Such a claim, with which we firmly disagree, finds no basis in any document adopted at the IGN or elsewhere. Mr. President, despite the progress in the discussions on the models, it must be noted that the current session of the IGN has not yielded any substantial outcomes and has not met the widespread expectations for the Security Council reform. In this regard, it is crucial that the forthcoming sessions generate tangible progress that leads to text-based negotiations with clearly specified timelines, akin to the approach followed in other negotiations in the UN. The usefulness and suitability of the IGN will be inevitably assessed by the progress achieved. Mr. President, the continued failure in the Security Council reform is an issue that goes well beyond the Council itself, given the reality that trust in the United Nations, which is at the center of multilateralism, has been shaken and the international order is in flux. Reform of the Security Council is needed not only to strengthen the UN as a whole, but also to maintain the entire international order. The G4 would, therefore, like to emphasize that this is an urgent issue that deeply concerns all member states, not just a few. The upcoming session is a particularly important milestone as it will commemorate the 80th anniversary of the founding of the UN. We must not miss this opportunity. The G4 strongly hopes to move the reform forward with the serious involvement of all member states to redesign the Security Council from its current structure, a snapshot of the international environment in 1945, into one that accurately reflects the contemporary realities. It is with this hope and positive spirit that we approach the rollover decision. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Japan. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Kuwait.
Thank you, President. At the outset, I would like to thank all member states and groups of states who have engaged wholeheartedly in this process throughout this year in the hope of reaching what we ultimately all believe is necessary and urgent, which is Security Council reform. And I would also like to thank you, Mr. President, for the trust that you have given myself and my co-chair, Alexander Marchek, in allowing us this opportunity to guide this process forward. It has been a tremendous honor to do so, and a tremendous honor to do it alongside Alexander Marchek, whose steadfast belief in the need for Security Council reform, given what we all see every day now, unfortunately, has been wholehearted. I wanted to ensure everybody that my co-chair and myself understand the urgency, understand the need to move this process forward. But that depends on member states and their willingness to explore the possibilities and let go of entrenched positions and find compromises and seek to work together to move this process forward. This is a member state-driven process. And I hope that we have been able over the last 3 years as co-chairs to move this process forward, and that the trust that we have gained from member states is invaluable to us. And we believe that this is the only way forward, is through this IGN process and with the participation and earnest efforts by member states. So I would like to just take this opportunity to thank Axel Marchek for his work throughout this process and to wish him all the success in his new endeavors. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I must say that you are a part of the process and it's been going very, very well. I wish you good luck in this process. Thank you very much. We have heard the last speaker in explanation of vote after the vote. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to His Excellency Tarek Al-Banai, Permanent Representative of Kuwait to the United Nations, who ably and patiently conducted the discussions and complex negotiations on the question of equitable representation on an increase in the membership of the Security Council and other matters related to the Security Council. I am sure members of the Assembly join me in extending our sincere appreciation to him. May I take it that it is the wish of the General Assembly to conclude its consideration of agenda item 122? It is so decided. The Assembly will resume its consideration of agenda item 123 entitled Strengthening of the United Nations System, to take action on a draft resolution issued as document A/79/L118. We shall now proceed to consider draft resolution A/79/L118. I now give the floor to the representative of the Secretariat.
Thank you, Mr. President. The present oral statement is made in the context of Rule 153 of the Rules of Procedure of the General Assembly. This statement has also been distributed to member states. The requests referred to in operative paragraphs 1E, 5, and 6 of draft resolution A/79/L118 would entail new activities in 2025, 2026, and in subsequent years. It is estimated at this time that the related cost implications would amount to $12,800 for 2025 and would range from $60,000 to $100,000 net of staff assessment annually for 2026 and subsequent years. These estimates do not cover requirements for travel and DSA of the panel, dialogue members, and meeting participants and experts, as it is assumed that the requirements would be covered from extra budgetary resources pursuant to operative paragraph 11 of the draft resolution. Further, the requests referred to in operative paragraphs 1, 1A, 1D, 5, and 8 would entail additional new activities in 2026 and in subsequent years. However, in the absence of modalities relating to the meetings of the panel, the global dialogue and the second dialogue, including timing, location, and conference servicing requirements, it is not possible at the present time to estimate the cost implications of the new activities. When the format, scope, and modalities are determined by the panel, the Secretary General would assess the cost implications and advise the General Assembly in accordance with Rule 153 of the Rules of Procedure of the Assembly. Once modalities are known, in accordance with established practice, the dates of the related meetings would be determined in consultation with the Department for General Assembly and Conference Management. Should the Assembly adopt the draft resolution and following consideration of the General Assembly's request contained in operative paragraph 10, the Secretariat may submit a revised estimates report to the General Assembly through the Fifth Committee during the main part of its 80th session, detailing the requirements for which an additional appropriation would be requested for 2026. A review of the requirements for 2027 and thereafter will be presented, if applicable, in the proposed program budgets for consideration by the General Assembly in the applicable years. With regard to the additional activities for 2025, every effort will be made to meet the requirement within the Secretariat's capacity, and there would be no program budget implications for 2025. In this regard, the Secretariat wishes to inform the General Assembly that its ability to implement the mandate will depend on the availability of adequate liquidity resources, including through voluntary contributions. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of the Secretariat. Before giving the, no, okay. What? The Assembly will now take a decision on draft resolution A/79/L118 entitled Terms of Reference and Modalities for the Establishment and Functioning of the Independent International Scientific Panel on Artificial Intelligence and the Global Dialogue on Artificial Intelligence Governance. May I take it that the Assembly decides to adopt draft resolution A/79/L118? It is so decided. Before giving the floor for explanations of vote after the vote, may I remind delegations that explanations of vote are limited to 10 minutes and should be made by delegations from their seats. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Costa Rica.
Mr. President, it is an honor to address this Assembly, the General Assembly, on behalf of Spain and Costa Rica, at what stands as a historic juncture for multilateral cooperation on artificial intelligence. We thank you, President Yang, and your distinguished team for entrusting us with the responsibility of guiding the deliberations aimed at translating the commitments in the Global Digital Compact into concrete actions, aimed also at establishing the first two pillars of a new multilateral architecture on artificial intelligence. We also wish to sincerely thank all delegations for their flexibility, engagement, and the trust that they placed in us. We undertook this mandate in good faith and with a firm belief in the historic significance of this endeavor. The resolution just adopted is the result of inclusive, broad-based consultation processes and reflects a carefully crafted balance between different positions, perspectives, and levels of ambition. This resolution establishes two foundational mechanisms for AI governance. One, a scientific panel that is independent, multidisciplinary, diverse, and gender balanced. This mechanism will allow the international community to better understand the risks, benefits, and implications of this technology. The second mechanism is a global dialogue. There, member states and stakeholders will have a platform to exchange views, and that will foster cooperation for AI governance, which is responsible and inclusive. Mr. President, the development of artificial intelligence is advancing at a pace and scale that means it affects all states and countries across the globe. With this resolution, the United Nations reaffirms its central role in guaranteeing that AI will serve humanity, that it will help bridge the digital divide, and that it will enable us to share the benefits of this transformative technology. Together, the independent International Scientific Panel and the Global Dialogue on AI Governance will provide an urgently needed space for scientific knowledge sharing among all states, and it will create the dialogue we need to share scientific knowledge in this field. under the aegis of the United Nations. Now is the time to stand united and act together to make this technological revolution a catalyst for a new era of multilateral cooperation. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Costa Rica. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Mr. President. The United Kingdom welcomes that these negotiations have produced a constructive outcome, enabling progress towards a stronger global understanding of artificial intelligence. We remain fully committed to an independent, expert-driven panel that upholds the highest standards of credibility and integrity. Members must serve in their personal capacity, act independently of governments and stakeholders, and be selected through an open, transparent, merit-based process consistent with the Global Digital Compact. We strongly support ensuring geographic diversity, gender balance, interdisciplinarity, and broad representation of perspectives, including from developing countries. These are vital to the panel's legitimacy and to serving all member states. Our clear understanding is that the limit of no more than 2 members of the same nationality is solely to uphold geographic balance. It does not create national entitlements or country slots, nor should it be seen as giving any delegation a role in designating members. For the United Kingdom, credibility rests on first ensuring scientific and technical excellence. It is regrettable that member states cannot have full clarity on the resolution's cost implications without further details of its modalities. The UK is committed to putting the UN on a more sustainable financial footing, and we will want to ensure costs are contained as modalities are finalised. Looking ahead, the United Kingdom will engage actively in the panel's establishment and support the promotion of expertise, including through working groups that can draw in specialist knowledge. This is essential to ensuring the panel functions effectively and delivers on the objectives of the Global Digital Compact. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of the United Kingdom. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Iraq, who will speak on behalf of the Group of 77 and China.
Mr. President of the General Assembly, I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the Group of 77 and China. At the outset, the group wishes to express its sincere appreciation to the co-facilitators for their tireless effort and dedicated leadership throughout this complex and evolving negotiation process. We are particularly grateful to the permanent representative of Costa Rica and Spain for their unwavering commitment and steady guidance. We'll also extend our deep appreciation to the delegation of Kenya for their exemplary representation of the group throughout the 8-month negotiation process. Their professionalism and steadfastness, dedication to the group's priorities have been instrumental in advancing our collective position. The Group of 77 and China recognizes the transformative potential of artificial intelligence when deployed responsibly, inclusively, and to serve the achievement of the Sustainability Development Goals. In governed property, AI could unlock new opportunities for improving public services, expanding access to education and health, enhancing digital economies, and accelerating the achievements of the 2030 Agenda. However, such benefits are contingent upon the establishment of a fair and inclusive international governance framework that ensures equitable access, promotes shared prosperity, and prevent the widening of existing technological divides. In this regard, the group also underscored the importance of the independent international scientific panel on artificial intelligence and the global dialogue of AI governance, taking into full consideration the social, economical, ethical, cultural, linguistic, and technical implications of artificial intelligence in the conduct of their work. Throughout this process, we have consistently underscored the urgent need for comprehensive international framework that guarantees the full inclusion of the developing countries in shaping the future of AI governance. These frameworks must uphold the principles of national sovereignty, equity, and transparency while ensuring that no one is left behind. The Group of 77 and China has demonstrated considerable flexibility throughout this negotiation track, offering bridging proposals and constructive engagement at every stage. However, this flexibility should not be misconstrued as a willingness to compromise on our core priorities. First and foremost, the need for robust and inclusive capacity building provisions. We have also emphasized the importance of meaningful participation in nomination processes, a clear outcome for the dialogue and continuity of the mechanism under a strong intergovernmental framework. In light of these considerations, the Group of 77 and China is pleased to join consensus on the draft resolution contained in document A/79/L118. We encourage all delegations to support this carefully negotiated outcome, which is believed lays a balanced and forward-looking foundation for international cooperation on AI governance. In closing, the group reaffirms its readiness to remain actively engaged in the implementation of this resolution and to contribute constructively to the work of both scientific panel and global dialogue. We are committed to ensure that AI governance evolves in a way that is inclusive, development-oriented, and aligned with the aspirations of Global South. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Iraq. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Russian Federation.
Distinguished colleagues, the Russian Federation positively assesses the fact that we've adopted a resolution on the establishment and the functioning of new bodies under UN auspices, bodies which will be tasked with the AI governance. We note the constructive role played by the negotiations process facilitators. Throughout all stages of work on the document, they demonstrated their willingness to take into consideration member state approaches and significantly contributed to the search for balanced language. We'd like to draw your attention to the fact that in keeping with para 1 of the preamble of the resolution, much like the activities of the Independent International Scientific Panel, the activities of the panel and the global dialogue should be strictly limited to the non-military domain and do not refer to AI applications for military purposes. We believe that key and the most relevant aspects of military applications of AI technologies are already being addressed in existing multilateral formats, first and foremost at the group of government experts on lethal autonomous weapons systems of the group of government experts of the high contracting parties of the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons. They're also being discussed at the UN Disarmament Commission. The Russian Federation would like to reaffirm its endeavor to actively participate in the work of the scientific panel and the global dialogue. Our experts have the necessary knowledge and experience in ICTs, including AI. We stand convinced that AI governance should be shaped with the UN playing a key role on the basis of its charter as a whole, with all of its interlinkages, as well as on the basis of existing principles of international law, with due respect for the sovereignty of states. We believe it's necessary to continue coming up with fair technical standards and requirements on AI. And in fact, the International Telecommunications Union, the ITU, should play a key role in this process. Our objective when it comes to AI is to facilitate the bridging of the digital gap by building developing countries' capacity through cooperation, technology transfer, and staff training. It's equally important to combat illegitimate unilateral measures which obstruct technological development and at times hold back such development. We stand convinced that this paradigm is in keeping with the interests of the global majority. We stand ready to partake in productive work with you on the basis of the aforementioned approaches. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of the Russian Federation. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Argentina.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the floor. Argentina does recognize the importance of making progress with international cooperation on artificial intelligence. However, in our view, this draft puts forward elements that do not reflect the priorities or approaches that Argentina has to this domain. For this reason, and given the sovereign position of our country that was to disassociate from the Pact for the Future and its annexes, within which this initiative features, my delegation wishes to place on record that we disassociate from draft resolution A/79/L.118. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the distinguished representative of Argentina. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Denmark, who will speak on behalf of the European Union.
Thank you, Mr. President. Excellencies, co-facilitators, dear colleagues, I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the European Union and its member states. The candidate countries, North Macedonia, Montenegro, Serbia, Albania, the Republic of Moldova, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Georgia, as well as Armenia, Monaco, and San Marino, align themselves with this statement. Let me first thank the permanent representatives of Spain and Costa Rica, who spared no efforts as co-facilitators to get us here today. The process was tougher than expected, and although we are not entirely satisfied with the final text, the EU is pleased to be able to join consensus today as we send a strong signal to the world. We are collectively demonstrating that the UN remains relevant and able to address the evolving technology landscape, which already has an immense impact on our societies and on human rights. Dear colleagues, the Global Digital Compact is based on the overarching principle that technology should benefit everyone. Today, we establish an independent international scientific panel on AI, and we initiate a global dialogue on AI governance within the United Nations. We are delivering on our promise to take action to promote scientific understanding of AI and to ensure inclusive, multi-stakeholder discussion on AI in the UN. Since the beginning, the EU's priority has always been to ensure the scientific independence of the panel on the one hand, and the multi-stakeholder nature of the global dialogue on the other hand, so as to allow for tailored exchanges that will help us make progress on AI governance year after year, building on the experience and knowledge of all stakeholders. These two mechanisms will contribute to building the UN's membership's capacity on AI by fostering shared knowledge, common understanding, and pooled experiences, equally benefiting all stakeholders, particularly from developing countries. Colleagues, we look forward to seeing the panel and the dialogue up and running, and we are confident that they will quickly become valuable tools to continue advancing discussions on AI at the UN. Thank you so much.
I thank the distinguished representative of Denmark. And I give the floor to the distinguished representative of the United States.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to the co-chairs, Costa Rica and Spain, for so ably steering this text to consensus. We thank you. The United States is the leader in pioneering AI and the global partner of choice as this technology transforms industries and information flows around the world. The United States stands resolved to do all it can to accelerate AI innovation. We believe deeply in the power of AI, and we see the way of progress is found in human judgment and friendly cooperation, in political freedom, civic responsibility, in sovereignty and independence, not global governance nor technocratic control. We'd reject efforts by global bodies to assert undue influence over AI governance. We warn that broad overregulation incentivizes centralization, stifles innovation, and increases the possibility of censorship. As such, the position of the United States is that this panel is a non-binding international independent scientific process on AI. On the dialogue, neither is it necessary to agree to areas of common understanding based on intergovernmental consultation, nor is it consistent with maintaining the dialogue as a place for open and frank discussions. A concern we have with this resolution is that it reaffirms the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The 2030 Agenda advances a program of soft global governance that is inconsistent with U.S. sovereignty and adverse to the rights and interests of Americans. We regret the endorsement of this agenda included in this resolution. The United States will no longer reaffirm the SDGs as a matter of course. As such, the United States disassociates from SDG references in paragraph 4. In lieu of gender, the United Nations should use more precise language to clarify the focus on women and the importance of accounting for their meaningful participation. As such, the United States disassociates from gender references in paragraphs 1b and 3. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of the United States, and I give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Mr. President, at the outset, allow me to extend our sincere appreciation to the co-facilitators and their dedicated teams for their efforts during the past 8 months of the negotiation. The delegation of Islamic Republic of Iran aligned itself with the statement and explanation of the position delivered by the PR of Iraq on behalf of the G77 and China. Iran has actively and constructively engaged in all stages of this negotiation. Our engagement was guided by this opinion that artificial intelligence, if governed inclusively, transparently, and fairly, can serve as a transformative driver of sustainable development. Developing countries have constantly stressed that AI holds significant potential to improve public services, expand access to education and healthcare, strengthening digital economies, and advance national development. This divide is reinforced by unequal access to digital infrastructure, inequality, digital literacy, restrictions on data flows, and imposition of unilateral coercive measures. These realities prevent developing countries from harnessing the benefit of AI. Bridging these divides requires concrete international cooperation and solidarity through effective technology transfer, enhanced capacity building, inclusive governance arrangement, and equitable access to data and digital infrastructure. Only then can we ensure that AI serves the needs of all humanity and not just a privileged few. Mr. President, we believe that any global governance framework on AI must guarantee the full and effective participation of all member states. Such frameworks must ensure equitable access to technology, promote shared prosperity, and prevent the widening of existing technological and economic inequalities. The principle of inclusivity, equity, and common but differentiated responsibility at global level must guide us in this endeavor. Mr. President, hence the United Nations must preserve its central role in supporting and providing an inclusive and intergovernmental framework for artificial intelligence governance. While other stakeholders have meaningful contributions to offer, their participation must remain supportive, complementary, and strictly confined to their respective mandate. In this regard, we are of the view that the language contained in paragraph 5, 6, and 8 must be interpreted in line with the established prerogative of member states, as well as the rules and procedures of the General Assembly. Only in this manner can the process ensure legitimacy, transparency, and a full respect for the intergovernmental nature of the United Nations. On the issue of multi-stakeholder engagement, it is essential to emphasize the need for clear accountability mechanisms. The responsibilities of big technology companies and cross-border platforms must be clearly defined vis-a-vis societies and national regulatory authorities. These actors must not operate behind oversight or accountability. Mr. President, the GDC fails to establish clear provisions to address cultural diversity, equitable sharing of benefits, and the accountability of major private sector actors, including big technology companies and cross-border digital platforms. These gaps risk entrenching rather than reducing global inequalities. We emphasize that digital technologies, including AI, might respect national sovereignty, national regulations, and cultural diversity. They must be advanced with the equal participation of all member states. At the same time, the global benefits of the AI should be shared equitably, while its risks and potential harms must be minimized through meaningful international cooperation guided by the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations. We further call on developed countries to honor their longest-standing commitments in the context of financing for development, technology transfer, and capacity building. Without the fulfillment of these obligations, the digital divide will persist, and AI will remain a source of inequality rather than opportunities. Mr. President, turning to the specific matter of the panel, my delegation reaffirms that the selection of the members must remain firmly under the authority of member states. The process should be guided by clear, transparent, and criteria-based modalities, ensuring full opportunities for the participation of representatives of developing countries. This is essential to guarantee the geographical balance, inclusivity, and legitimacy in the work of the panel. It is regrettable that the key priorities articulated in the letter of the Group of 77 and China have been largely disregarded, particularly the establishment of a plenary mechanism to ensure meaningful intergovernmental engagement with the panel, the reaffirmation of the central role of the member states in the nomination process, the adoption of a biennial negotiation outcome of the global dialogue, and the creation of dedicated fellowships to enhance the representation and effective participation of developing countries in AI governance. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of China.
President, China supports the statement made by Iraq on behalf of G77 and China. We thank co-facilitators, the permanent representatives of Costa Rica and Spain, for their hard work, and congratulate the GA on its consensus adoption of the draft resolution. AI is a new frontier in human development and a key driver in the new round of technological revolution and industrial transformation. It can also become an international public good that benefits all of humanity. AI brings unprecedented development opportunities, but also numerous risks and challenges. In the era of AI, only through global cooperation can we fully harness the potential of AI while ensuring that its development is safe, reliable, fair, and under control. It is essential for effectively implementing the UN Pact for the Future and its annex, the Global Digital Compact, and for creating an inclusive, open, sustainable, fair, safe, and reliable digital and intelligent future for all. China has consistently supported the UN in playing a leading role in global AI governance and welcomes the establishment of an international AI scientific panel and a global AI governance dialogue under the UN framework. We look forward to the early operationalization of these two mechanisms to facilitate meaningful discussions on strengthening global AI governance, promoting AI for good, and ensuring inclusive development. Last month, China hosted the 2025 World AI Conference and high-level meeting on global AI governance, where it released the Global AI Governance Action Plan and proposed the establishment of a World AI Cooperation Organization. We hope to use the adoption of this resolution as an opportunity to work with all member states to actively promote its implementation. We will uphold the principles of prioritizing development, putting people first, ensuring equality and mutual benefit, and maintaining integrity and innovation. Through concrete actions, we aim to bridge the digital and the intelligent divide, help all countries share the benefits of AI, and enhance AI's role in promoting sustainable development and the well-being of all humanity. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of China. We have heard the last speaker in explanation of vote after the vote. May I take it that it is the wish of the General Assembly to conclude its consideration of agenda item 123? It is so decided. The Assembly will resume its consideration of sub-item W of agenda item 125, entitled Cooperation between the United Nations and the Commonwealth of Independent States to take action on a draft resolution contained in document A/79/L114. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Tajikistan to introduce draft resolution A/79/L114.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, Tajikistan, as a chair of the Commonwealth of Independent States in 2025, has honor to introduce draft resolution A/79/L114, entitled Cooperation between the United Nations and the Commonwealth of Independent States. Since its establishment, the CIS has played a constructive role in shaping cooperation across the Euro-Asian region. For more than 3 decades, it has shown resilience and adaptability. It continues to serve as a reliable platform for dialogue and practical cooperation. The resolution before us today is a technical update of the biennial text. It builds on previous General Assembly resolutions, and it affirms the importance of international cooperation in addressing economic, social, cultural, and humanitarian challenges in line with the UN Charter. It notes the activities of the CIS in strengthening regional cooperation, particularly in trade and economic development. It also highlights the role of the organization in promoting sustainable development, countering transnational threats, and providing humanitarian support. The resolution welcomes the CIS's commitment to deepen its cooperation with the United Nations. It further invites specialized agencies, funds, programs, and international financial institutions to enhance their engagement with the organization. As chair, Tajikistan emphasizes that this cooperation must be grounded in the principles of sovereign equality, respect for international law, and the UN Charter. We also uphold continuity, consensus, and respect for the views of every participating state. Mr. President, this resolution reflects not only a procedural update, but also a clear commitment to partnership. It encourages the United Nations and the CIS to deliver practical results that respond to today's shared challenges. In conclusion, Mr. President, I thank all member states for their support. In keeping with the long-standing tradition of consensus, should a vote be requested, we urge all delegations to vote in favor of this resolution. I thank you for your attention.
I thank the distinguished representative of Tajikistan. We shall now proceed to consider draft resolution A/79/L114. For your information, the draft resolution has closed for e-sponsorship. I give the floor to the representative of the Secretariat.
Thank you, Mr. President. I should like to announce that since the submission of the draft resolution, and in addition to the delegations listed on the L document, the following countries have also become co-sponsors of A/79/L114: Kuwait, Nicaragua, and Timor-Leste. If any other countries wish to co-sponsor A/79/L114, please signify by pressing the microphone button. Djibouti, and that concludes the list. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of the Secretariat. Before giving the floor for explanations of vote before the vote, may I remind delegations that explanations of vote are limited to 10 minutes and should be made by delegations from their seats. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the United States.
Thank you. The United States has serious reservation about the proposed resolution, and in particular, the value of coordination with the Commonwealth of Independent States. The United States believes that the convening government representatives at both the United Nations and through CIS cooperation with the UN creates unnecessary duplication. We do not support such redundancy. Additionally, today's resolution exemplifies the flaws of many of the GA items we consider each year, a pro forma exercise that does little and accomplishes less. Like others of its kind, this resolution leads the UN away from its core functions of maintaining international peace and security. The United States supports the UN returning to its core principles and purposes under the UN Charter. Unfortunately, today's resolution undermines that goal. Therefore, we are calling a vote on this resolution today. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of the United States. We have heard the last speaker in explanation of vote before the vote. The Assembly will now take a decision on draft resolution A/79/L114 entitled Cooperation between the United Nations and the Commonwealth of Independent States. A recorded vote has been requested. We shall now begin the voting process. Those in favor of draft resolution A/79/L114, please signify. Those against? Abstentions?
The General Assembly is now voting on draft resolution A/79/L114 entitled Cooperation between the United Nations and the Commonwealth of Independent States. Will all delegations confirm that their votes are accurately reflected on the screen? The voting has been completed. Please lock the machine.
The result of the vote is as follows. In favor, 114. Against, 1. Abstentions, 19. Draft resolution A/79/L114 is adopted. May I take it that it is the wish of the Assembly to conclude its consideration of sub-item W of agenda item 125? It is so decided. Before adjourning, I give the floor to the representative of the Secretariat.
Thank you, Mr. President. The following oral statement was meant for the 86th Plenary Meeting on 25 July 2025 in connection with the adoption of Draft Decision A/79/L103 entitled Venue and Dates of the 16th Session of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, under Agenda Item 13, entitled Integrated and Coordinated Implementation of and Follow-up to the Outcomes of the Major United Nations Conferences and Summits in the Economic, Social, and Related Fields. Allow me to read the oral statement for the record. The present oral statement is made in the context of Rule 153 of the Rules of Procedure of the General Assembly. The present statement was also distributed to member states on 11th July 2025. Under the terms of the draft decision, the General Assembly would take note of Decision 589 S35, approved by the Trade and Development Board at its 35th Special Session, held in Geneva on 23rd June 2025, and welcome the generous offer of the Government of Switzerland to host the 16th session of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development in Geneva in October 2025. With regards to the 16th session of the UNCTAD, it should be noted that the Government of Switzerland will need to defray the actual additional costs directly or indirectly involved after consultation with the Secretary General as to their nature and possible extent. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of the Secretariat. The meeting is adjourned.
you.